You know, there's a specific kind of fear that comes from the unknown.
Yeah.
The monster under the bed, the shadow in the alley, the thing that jumps out at you from the dark.
Sure.
But looking at this absolute mountain of documents we have on the desk today, the psych reports, the trial transcripts, the witness statements, I think there's a much deeper, more unsettling fear we need to talk about.
It's the fear of the known, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the fear of the monster who isn't hiding under the bed, but the one standing in the living room.
The one who waves to you in the hallway.
Yes, holding a bag of groceries. The one who is polite. We are talking, of course, about Jeffrey Dahmer.
The Milwaukee Cannibal. The Milwaukee Monster. And you're right, the terror here isn't just the gore. And believe me, there is plenty of that. It's the dissonance.
It is.
If you look at the FBI profiler notes or, the interviews with his neighbors that we've pulled, nobody described a raving lunatic. They described a man who was quiet, a man who was normal, until he wasn't.
And that is exactly our mission today.
Yeah.
We are not just recounting the crimes. I think everyone has seen the headlines of the Netflix series.
Right.
We are taking this stack of source material to answer a different question. How does that transition happen? How do you go from a shy boy collecting animal bones in the woods to a man building a literal altar of human skulls in a downtown apartment?
We're looking for the progression.
And to do that, we have to look at the failures. Not just his internal psychological failures, but the external ones. The family, the school system, the army, and maybe most importantly, the police.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you read these transcripts, specifically the police logs from 1991, you realize Dahmer didn't just slip through the cracks. The cracks were canyons, and he was practically waved through the gates.
Before we open the first file, we do need to be very clear with you listening right now. The source material we are covering today involves extreme sexual violence, dismemberment, and cannibalism.
It is graphic. It is. We are going to treat this with the analytical distance it requires, but the facts themselves are brutal. If you are not in the headspace for that, this is your warning.
It is heavy, but it's necessary context if we really want to move beyond the sensation and understand the pathology.
Okay, let's start where the psychiatrist started during the trial. The origin story. Nature versus nurture. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, born May 21st, 1960, in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You look at the early reports, and honestly, it seems confusing. Was he neglected? Was he loved? The sources seem to argue with each other.
They do, and that contradiction is actually the first key insight. We have reports from neighbors saying he was a beautiful, energetic child, but then we have later accounts, specifically from his father, Lionel, describing a household that was just thick with tension.
Right.
His mother, Joyce, is described in these psychiatric evaluations as a hypochondriac, someone, and this is a quote, greedy for pity.
Greedy for pity. That is a very specific, very loaded phrase. It paints a picture of a woman who needed constant emotional validation.
It suggests a home environment where emotional energy was a finite resource and the mother was consuming most of it. Lionel was a chemistry student studying at Marquette, often gone.
So he wasn't really present.
Not consistently.
Yeah.
So you have a young Jeffrey Dahmer in a house that feels unstable. He later told psychologists, and this is in the Printke and Burgess reports, that he felt unsure of the solidity of the family.
Wow.
That is a profound thing for a child to sense, that the ground beneath them isn't solid.
But plenty of kids grow up in tense households and don't become serial killers.
Yeah.
There's a specific medical event in the timeline that keeps coming up as a turning point.
Yeah.
He was 4 years old.
Just before his 4th birthday. A double hernia surgery. Now, we have to contextualize this. In 1964, pediatric anesthesia and pain management, well, they weren't what they are today.
Not at all.
But it's not just the physical pain, it's the psychological impact. Before the surgery, teachers and parents say he was happy, energetic. After, it's like a switch flipped.
How so? What was the change? What do the reports say?
He became timid, subdued. One of his teachers actually wrote a note, we have it here in the school records, mentioning signs of neglect or abandonment.
So he felt abandoned by being left at the hospital.
Exactly. He felt that by being left there, even if it was for his own good, he had been discarded. And when he came back, he didn't trust the world anymore.
It's interesting you use the word discarded because that theme of abandonment seems to drive everything that comes later. That fear of people leaving him.
Precisely. And what does a 4-year-old do when he feels the living world is unreliable? When people leave? He turns to things that can't leave, things that are static.
Which brings us to the fiddlesticks. When I read this in the notes, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. It's such an innocent-sounding word for something so morbid.
It is. And it shows that his pathology was sensory from the very beginning. He's 4 years old, playing under the porch, and he sees his father pulling out these old animal bones that had accumulated there, probably from civet cats or raccoons.
Okay.
Most kids would be grossed out. Jeffrey was thrilled.
But not just by seeing them, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't visual for him.
No, it was auditory. It was the sound. He took these bones and rattled them in a bucket. He loved the clatter. He called them his fiddlesticks. He told a therapist years later that the sound gave him a feeling of power and solidity.
I see.
Living things are unpredictable. They are soft. They leave. Bones are hard. They are permanent. They make a sound you can control.
That is a fascinating psychological distinction. So he wasn't attracted to the violence at that age. He was attracted to the permanence.
Exactly. And this obsession, it escalates. He's not just finding bones anymore. He's looking for them. He's exploring roadkill. He wanted to see, in his own words, how they fit together.
So it was a curiosity about the mechanics of it all.
It was. This is a crucial distinction we need to make. He wasn't a sadist at this age. He wasn't torturing animals for pain.
He wasn't the kid pulling wings off flies?
No. He was a necrophile in the making. He was interested in the objectification of the body, the mechanics of it. He wanted to know how the machine worked once the life was gone.
There's a story here involving a dinner table conversation that I think perfectly illustrates the tragedy of his upbringing. The chicken bone incident. It reads like a dark comedy sketch, but it's real life.
It really does. You have Lionel, the father, who is a chemist. He loves science. He's been distant, studying for his PhD, and he wants to connect with his strange, quiet son.
A chance to bond.
He sees an opening. So Jeffrey comes up to him one night after dinner and asks, "Dad, what would happen if I put these chicken bones in bleach?"
And Lionel lights up.
Exactly. He thinks, my God, finally, the boy is showing an interest in science. He's curious. So Lionel takes him to the garage. He teaches him the proper chemical mixtures. He shows him how to bleach bones to preserve them.
He thinks he's raising a biologist.
And Jeffrey is learning taxidermy for his future trophies. It's just a heartbreaking disconnect. The father is teaching methodology. The son is feeding a pathology.
Wow.
And Jeffrey started collecting roadkill, bleaching the bones, and this is where it gets ritualistic. He started mounting skulls on makeshift crosses in the woods behind their house.
That's moving beyond curiosity. That is worship. Or at least creating a sanctuary.
It was his world. He had no friends. The family was shouting at each other inside the house. So he went into the woods, surrounded himself with death that he had cleaned and controlled, and he felt safe.
Let's jump forward to adolescence. The family moves to Ohio Bath Township. Jeffrey is in high school. Now, usually, this is where the loner narrative kicks in. But Dahmer wasn't invisible, was he? He actually made a spectacle of himself.
This is the mask we talked about. By high school, he realized he was different. He was realizing he was gay, which in rural Ohio in the 1970s was a source of massive internal shame.
A huge secret to carry.
A huge secret. And he knew he had these dark thoughts, so he created a character, the class clown.
The source material calls it doing a Dahmer.
Right. It was a performance. He would go into the hallways or the cafeteria and fake epileptic seizures. He would contort his body, make groaning noises, pretend to have cerebral palsy.
And people laughed.
They laughed, but it was that uncomfortable, nervous laughter. He was the court jester. He would do it at the local mall. He would do it in class. It was a way to get attention, but it was also a barrier.
How so?
If everyone is looking at the clown, nobody is looking at the person underneath. Nobody asks the clown, "Hey, are you okay?"
There is one anecdote from a school trip to Washington, D.C. in 1977 that honestly blew my mind. It suggests a level of confidence, or maybe sociopathy, that doesn't fit the shy boy profile at all.
The vice president prank. It is legendary in the source material.
Yeah.
He's on a class trip. He bets his classmates that he can get a private tour of the White House. He finds a phone, calls up the vice president's office, Walter Mondale at the time.
Walter Mondale, right?
And he claims to be a journalist or a student representative. He talks his way past the secretaries with pure confidence.
And it worked.
He got the tour. He walked out and showed his classmates the souvenirs. It proves that he had a chameleon-like ability. He could mimic authority. He could mimic charm. He could look you in the eye and lie so convincingly that you would open the door for him.
And that skill becomes deadly later on.
Absolutely deadly, especially when he's dealing with the police.
While he's pulling these pranks, he's chemically unraveling. The drinking started early.
Very early, age 14. And we aren't talking about sneaking a beer at a party. We're talking about hiding liquor in his jacket lining during school hours, drinking scotch in first period.
In school?
In school. He told a classmate once when he was caught sipping from a flask in history class, "It's my medicine."
Medicine. That implies he knew he was sick. He knew something was wrong.
He was anesthetizing himself. He was trying to drown the fantasies. Because the fantasies were shifting, it wasn't just about attraction anymore. He was fantasizing about a partner who was unconscious, a partner who couldn't speak. He started fantasizing about dissection.
And this brings us to the first time he tried to make the fantasy real. The jogger. This is a sliding doors moment, a real fork in the road.
It is. He fixated on a male jogger who ran past his house every day. He found him attractive. But Dahmer didn't want to ask him on a date. He took a baseball bat and hid in the bushes.
Oh, wow.
He waited for hours. His plan was to knock the man unconscious and drag him into the woods.
But the jogger never came.
Not that day. He changed his route or took a day off, and Dahmer went back inside. But the intent was locked in. The psychological barrier had been crossed. He was ready to hunt. He just needed a target.
And then the environment collapses. 1978. The year he graduates, the year his parents divorced.
It was a nuclear divorce. It was bitter. It was loud. Lionel moved out to a motel. Joyce, the mother, won custody of the younger brother, David, and moved back to Wisconsin. And in the chaos, they essentially forgot about Jeffrey.
They just left him.
He had just turned 18, so legally, he was an adult. But functionally, he was a spiraling alcoholic with untreated psychosis, and they left him alone in a big house in the middle of the woods with a stocked liquor cabinet and no supervision.
It's a powder keg. And the fuse lit just 3 weeks after graduation, June 18th, 1978, Steven Hicks.
Steven Hicks was a tragedy of wrong place, wrong time. He was 18, just like Dahmer. He was hitchhiking to a rock concert. Now, you have to remember, in 1978, hitchhiking was common.
Yeah, people did that.
Dahmer pulls over. Now, at this point, evidence suggests Dahmer doesn't have a plan to kill him. He just sees a guy he's attracted to. He wants company. He invites him back to the house for a beer.
And Hicks goes, why wouldn't he? It's a peer. A guy his age. A nice house.
They hang out, they drink, they listen to music. But eventually, Hicks wants to leave. He has a concert to get to. And this is the trigger we talked about earlier. Abandonment.
He didn't want him to leave.
That's what he said. He wanted to leave, and I didn't want him to leave. That is the core of it. Total control. If Hicks leaves, Dahmer is alone again.
And that's when he attacks.
Dahmer picks up a 10-pound dumbbell and strikes Hicks from behind. He strangles him. And then, the transition is complete. The boy who collected roadkill takes over.
The disposal of Steven Hicks is horrifyingly efficient for a first-time killer. I mean, most 18-year-olds can't even clean their room, let alone dispose of a body completely.
It's because he had practiced. He dissected the body, he buried the remains in the backyard. Later, he dug them up, crushed the bones with a sledgehammer, and scattered them in the ravine.
With a sledgehammer.
He dissolved the flesh with acid. He used the techniques his father taught him, combined with the anatomy he learned on the animals. It was clinical.
Now, usually in these stories, once the killer breaks the seal, they can't stop. The floodgates open. But Dahmer stops. There is a massive gap in the timeline here. 9 years. Why?
It's what criminologists call failed normalcy. The murder of Hicks scared him. It really did. He didn't want to be a monster. He wanted to be normal, so he tried to do what normal young men do. He went to college.
Ohio State University. How did that go?
Disaster. Total disaster. His GPA was .45. He was drunk all the time. He failed every single class except riflery. Riflery. So his father, trying to discipline him, says, join the Army.
And the Army took him, even with that record.
They did. And ironically, they trained him as a medical specialist. So now the government is formally training him in anatomy. He served in West Germany. And this period is... it's debated. Officially, he was discharged for alcohol abuse. His drinking was legendary, even by Army standards.
But there were rumors.
There were rumors, and later some unproven allegations that there were unsolved murders in his vicinity in Germany. But nothing ever stuck.
Nothing ever stuck. So he's discharged.
Discharged and sent home. A failure in college, a failure in the Army. He ends up in West Allis, Wisconsin, living with his grandmother.
Catherine Dahmer.
By all accounts, a sweet religious woman. She's the only person Dahmer ever seemed to genuinely love. She took him to church. He tried to be a good grandson. He got a job at a blood bank, then a chocolate factory, Ambrosia Chocolate.
At the basement.
The basement became his new woods. He started drinking again, and the fantasies came back darker. He stole a male mannequin from a department store.
A mannequin?
Think about the psychology of that. He brought it home and kept it in the closet. He wanted something that looked human, but had no will, no voice, no ability to leave.
The perfect compliant partner.
The perfect partner. Grandma found it. She was terrified. She made him throw it out. But that didn't stop the urge. He started going to gay bathhouses in Milwaukee.
And this is where he starts refining the method, the drugging.
Yes. He realized he didn't have the social skills to keep people, and he didn't want to negotiate with them, so he started crushing sleeping pills, Hellshawn, into drinks. He called it zombification, though at this stage it was just rendering them unconscious so he could use their bodies without them resisting.
He's turning them into objects.
Exactly. He said in his confession, "I trained myself to view people as objects of pleasure." And in 1987, the dam breaks. Steven Twomey.
This is the blackout murder.
Yes. Dahmer meets Twomey at a bar. They go to a hotel. Dahmer had the drug drink ready, but he claims he drank too much himself. He says he blacked out and woke up the next morning and Twomey was dead. His chest was crushed in.
Did he intend to kill him?
Dahmer claimed no. He claimed it was an accident of rough sex or a drunken rage he couldn't remember. But here is where the monster in the living room comes in. He didn't call the police. He bought a large suitcase. He folded Twomey's body into it, took a taxi back to his grandmother's house, and dragged it into the basement.
While his grandmother was upstairs making tea.
Living her life. This is the horror of the West Alice years. He killed 3 men in that house. James Doxtator. Richard Guerrero. He was dismembering them in the basement sink, boiling the bones on his grandmother's stove, telling her it was taxidermy chemicals or work stuff from the chocolate factory.
The deception is just staggering.
And there was one moment where the two worlds collided. Ronald Flowers. This story gives me chills every time.
This is one of the most chilling what-ifs.
It is. He brought Ronald Flowers home. He drugged him. Flowers was groggy, basically helpless. But then Grandma Catherine comes down the stairs. She sees the man. She says, "Is that you, Jeff?" She starts fussing over the guest. "Oh, he doesn't look well. Let me make him some coffee."
She inadvertently intervened in a murder.
She broke the spell. She stayed with them. Dahmer couldn't kill him with her watching. He let Flowers go. Flowers woke up later in a hospital, groggy, with no memory of how he got there. He actually reported it to the police, but without evidence. No physical injury, just a blackout. Nothing happened.
It's amazing how many times he was almost caught. In 1988, he was caught, arrested.
For molesting a child. The older brother of a future victim, tragically. This should have been the end of it. The system had him. He was convicted. But the Judge William Gardner, gave him work release.
Work release for a sex offense involving a minor.
The judge felt Dahmer was productive because he had a steady job at the chocolate factory. So he slept in jail at night, but during the day, he was free, he could walk around, and once he was out on probation, he moved into the apartment.
The Oxford Apartments, apartment 213.
May 1990. He moves in, and he brings a box with him. Inside the box is the mummified head of one of his victims, Anthony Sears. He puts it in his new closet. He is now completely independent. No parents, no grandma, no rules.
Let's describe this place because it becomes a character in the story. It wasn't a dungeon. It was a regular apartment building.
It was a low-income housing unit in a predominantly African-American neighborhood. Dahmer was one of the few white tenants. The neighbors describe it as smelling terrible almost immediately.
The smell of death.
And chemicals, bleach, incense. He always had an excuse. My freezer broke and the meat spoiled. My tropical fish died. I'm doing varnish work. And because he was polite and because people generally don't want to confront their neighbors, especially a quiet, weird neighbor, they let it slide.
And in 1991, the slide turns into an avalanche. The murder factory.
It was a spree. He was killing almost weekly. He would go to a bar, lure a man back, drug him, strangle him, dismember him. He targeted ethnic minority men almost exclusively.
Now, Dahmer always claimed he wasn't racist.
He did. He said he was just attracted to a specific body type.
But we have to look at the results. A white man preying on Black, Asian, and Latino men in a marginalized community. It creates a dynamic where the police were less likely to investigate missing persons reports aggressively.
Absolutely. It is the less dead phenomenon. It's a sociological term. Society cares less about certain victims. Sex workers, minorities, gay men in the height of the AIDS epidemic. Dahmer was swimming in a pool of victims that the system was already ignoring. He knew nobody was coming for them.
And his methods, they weren't just killing anymore. He was experimenting. The drilling. I struggle to even say the words because the cruelty is so specific.
This is where we see the depth of his loneliness and his madness. He didn't just want a dead body. A dead body rots. It can't hug you back. He wanted a living zombie.
A living zombie.
He drilled holes into the skulls of living victims, Errol Lindsay, Konerak Sinthasomphone, and injected hydrochloric acid or boiling water directly into the frontal lobes of their brains.
He was trying to lobotomize them.
He wanted to white their will. He wanted to keep the motor functions, the breathing, the movement, but remove the person. He wanted a companion who would sit there, never leave, never judge, and never speak.
It never worked.
No. It killed them, usually slowly and painfully, and then he would consume them. He ate hearts, livers, biceps. He told the psychologist he wanted to make them a permanent part of me.
So if he ate them, they couldn't leave him.
It's a desperate, twisted attempt at connection.
This leads us to the single most infuriating, heartbreaking moment in this entire case. The moment the system didn't just fail, but actively participated.
Yeah.
May 27, 1991. Konerak Sinthasomphone.
This is the moment that haunts Milwaukee. It is the moment where the mask worked too well. Dahmer goes out to buy beer. Konerak, who is only 14 years old, has been drugged and drilled. But he wakes up. He manages to stumble out of the apartment.
Dave escapes.
He does. He's naked, bleeding from the head, unable to speak clearly. He collapses in the street.
2 women, neighbors, find him. Sandra Smith and Nicole Childress.
They are heroes. They call 911. They say, there is a child here. He is hurt. He is naked. The police arrive. Officers Belshazak and Gabrish.
And then Dahmer comes back.
And he puts on the mask. He walks up, calm, cool, collected. He tells the officers, oh, I'm sorry. This is my friend. He's 19. He's just really drunk. We had a lover's spat.
He's 14. He's bleeding. And the women are screaming this.
The women are pointing out that the boy is bleeding from his rectum. They are shouting, he is a child. And the police, they ignore the black women. They listen to the polite white man.
I can't believe it.
They actually threaten to arrest the women for interfering with police business.
And they take the boy back inside.
They physically escorted Konerak Sinthasomphone back into apartment 213. They walked him into the slaughterhouse. They stood in the living room. They even commented on the smell. Dahmer said, broken freezer. They bought it. They left the boy there and walked out.
It makes you sick to hear it. To know that the officers were standing feet away from a decomposing body in the next room, and they handed a living victim back to his killer.
It gets worse. We have the transcripts of the police radio banter after they left. They were joking. They were laughing about delousing themselves because they had to touch the intoxicated Asian.
They were joking about it.
They made homophobic jokes about the lovers. It was racism and homophobia, clear as day. And because of that prejudice, Konerak died. Dahmer killed him minutes after the police left.
And he went on to kill 4 more people after that. 4 people who would be alive if those officers had done their job.
Exactly.
That was May. He wasn't caught until July. That's 2 more months of terror because of that failure. So how does it finally end? July 22, 1991. Tracy Edwards.
Tracy Edwards was a survivor. He met Dahmer at a bar, went back to the apartment for money to take photos. Dahmer managed to handcuff one of his wrists, but Edwards got a bad vibe immediately.
The smell.
The smell hit him. He saw the boxes of acid, the blue drum in the corner.
And Dahmer pulls a knife.
He puts the knife to Edwards' chest. He's acting erratic. He's chanting. He puts on the movie The Exorcist III. He tells Edwards, I'm going to eat your heart.
How did Edwards keep it together?
He played the game. He saw that Dahmer needed reassurance. So Edwards said, it's okay, Jeff. We're friends. I'm not going anywhere. He kept him calm. He waited. And the moment Dahmer looked away, Edwards punched him in the face and ran.
He got out. He flagged down a patrol car, Officers Roth and Mueller.
And this time, the officers didn't just walk away. Edwards led them back. They went up to the apartment to get the key for the handcuffs. Officer Mueller is standing in the bedroom. He looks under the bed and sees a knife. Then he sees an open dresser drawer.
The Polaroids.
Dozens of them. Dahmer documented everything. Dismembered bodies, posed corpses, steps of the process. Mueller looks at them, walks into the living room, shows his partner one of the photos, and says, these are for real.
And the struggle begins.
They tackle Dahmer, they pin him down, and then they start to open things. They open the refrigerator.
A severed head on the bottom shelf.
It was a house of horrors. 4 severed heads in the kitchen, 7 skulls in the bedroom, hearts in the fridge, a torso in the freezer, and that blue drum in the corner. It was filled with acid and 3 decomposing torsos.
The medical examiner later said it was more like dismantling a museum than a crime scene.
And that's a perfect segue to the shrine, because Dahmer confessed that he was building something specific. He had plans drawn up. We have the sketches here in the file.
Describe it for us. What was he building?
A black table, adorned with skulls, incense burners. He planned to paint the entire skeletons of 2 victims and place them on either side as sentinels. He had a special blue lamp he's going to hang over it to create a mood.
What was it for? What's the purpose?
Meditation. He told police he wanted to sit in a black chair in front of it and draw power from them. He felt that if he was surrounded by their remains, he wasn't alone. He was the king of a silent kingdom.
That is horrifying.
He said if he had been arrested 6 months later, it would have been finished.
It goes back to that idea of ownership. He was creating a world where he was the god, surrounded by his subjects.
Precisely.
So, the trial. 1992. The evidence is overwhelming. He confesses to everything. So the question isn't, did he do it? It's, is he sane?
Guilty but insane. That was the plea. The defense had to prove that he had a mental disease that made him unable to control his actions. They brought in experts to testify about necrophilia, borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder. They painted him as a sick man, a passenger in his own body.
But the prosecution, led by Dr. Park Dietz, had a devastating counterargument, and it centered on the alcohol.
This is the brilliance of the prosecution, Dietz argued. If Dahmer was truly compelled by an unstoppable urge, why did he need to get drunk to do it? The evidence showed Dahmer would drink heavily before a murder.
Liquid courage.
Exactly. Dietz argued this was liquid courage. He was drinking to suppress his conscience. If he had to suppress his conscience, that means he had a conscience. And if he had a conscience, he knew it was wrong.
That's a compelling point. He was choosing to kill.
He was choosing to overcome his inhibition. That implies choice. The jury agreed. They found him sane.
15 life sentences. No death penalty in Wisconsin. He goes to prison.
Columbia Correctional Institution. He was kept in solitary at first, but interestingly, he adjusted. He received fan mail, money, and he had a religious conversion.
A genuine one.
It seems so. He met with a minister weekly. He was baptized in the prison whirlpool. He started questioning whether it was a sin for him to keep living. He seemed to be seeking an exit.
And on November 28, 1994, he found it, or it found him.
He was on cleaning duty in the gym. The guards left him unsupervised for 20 minutes, just 20 minutes. He was with 2 other inmates, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver. Christopher Scarver was suffering from severe schizophrenia. He believed he was the son of God. He had a newspaper clipping of Dahmer's crimes in his pocket. He confronted Dahmer. He asked him, "Did you really do these things?"
Did Dahmer fight back?
No. He didn't even yell for the guards. Scarver took a 20-inch metal bar from the weight room. He bludgeoned Dahmer to death. Reports say Dahmer just accepted it. He effectively committed suicide by inmate.
And his mother's reaction. Joyce Dahmer. It breaks your heart in a different way. She said, "Now is everybody happy?"
It was the bitter end to a bitter story. The victims' families finally had closure, in a sense. The monster was dead.
The aftermath is just as messy. The building was demolished. The lot is still empty today.
The victims' family sued. There was a horrible moment where they almost auctioned off Dahmer's possessions, his tools, his fridge, to pay the families.
A market for murderabilia.
Exactly. But a civic group raised money to buy the lot and destroy the items so they wouldn't end up on some collector's shelf.
And even his brain was a point of contention.
His mom wanted it studied by scientists to see if there was a biological cause for his evil. His dad wanted it cremated to put it all to rest. The judge sided with the father. It was cremated.
So what does this all mean? We've walked through the timeline. We've seen the escalation, the fiddlesticks, the mask, the failures of the police. What is the takeaway? When you close that file, what stays with you?
It's the invisibility. We like to think monsters look like monsters. We want them to have horns. We want them to be drooling maniacs. But Dahmer was the guy who helped jumpstart your car. He was the guy who politely explained to the police that his friend was drunk.
He used our social contracts against us. He used our politeness against us.
Exactly. The police officers at the Sinthasomphone scene didn't want to be rude to the nice white man. That desire to be polite, to not pry, to respect privacy, that is where he hid. He hid in the blind spots of our civility.
It makes you wonder, who are we standing next to in the elevator? And how much do we miss because we are afraid to ask the awkward question?
And are we listening to the vulnerable people screaming for help, or are we listening to the calm voice telling us everything is fine?
That is a thought that will keep me up tonight. Thank you for walking us through this darkness today.
Stay safe.
We'll see you in the next Deep Dive.